Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. The cruelest thing my wife ever did was stand behind her parents in a glass-walled co-working space while a process server read my name out loud, like I was a criminal, and she didn't defend me. She didn't even look embarrassed. She just smoothed her blazer sleeve, kept her face pleasant, and whispered, "Don't make a scene. Handle it." While her brother smirked like this was entertainment. Here's how it happened. I'm Omari Vance. I write code for a living, back-end systems, integrations, the quiet stuff that keeps businesses running even when nobody notices. I'm not loud. I'm not performative. I observe, I log patterns, and I move when the data is clear. My wife, Zuri Ashford Vance, is an entrepreneur, the kind of woman who can make a room feel warmer just by walking into it. People love her. They don't see what I see when the door closes. The day the papers came, it was a Thursday in Arlington, Virginia. I'd taken a meeting in a small conference room with a whiteboard wall and stale mint candies on the table. When I stepped out, a man in a gray suit was waiting by the front desk. He asked for me like he'd been told I was difficult. "Omari Vance," he said. My coworkers looked up from laptops. I felt every eye land. He placed an envelope in my hand. Behind him, near the glass entry doors, were Lemuel and Karis Ashford, Zuri's parents, standing shoulder to shoulder like they were posing for a family photo. Beside them was Zuri's younger brother, Trevian, in an expensive hoodie he didn't buy. He leaned against the wall, arms folded, chin lifted, enjoying himself. Zuri stood slightly behind her mother, face composed, lips glossy, eyes calm. Not confused, not surprised. Calm like this was scheduled. I looked down at the top page. Civil complaint. Debt. Amount big enough to make your stomach tighten. And then the line that mattered. They claimed I had agreed to repay Trevian's debt because I benefited from the arrangement. It was written like a story with me as the villain. My fingers didn't shake. My voice didn't rise. I just looked at Zuri and waited for her to say, "This is wrong." She said nothing. Karis stepped forward first. She had that soft church lady smile that never reaches the eyes. "We didn't want to involve strangers," she said, meaning the court system, meaning my workplace. "But you left us no choice, Omari." Lemuel nodded like he was confirming a verdict. Trevian grinned, and under his breath I heard, "Should have just paid it." Zuri's eyes flicked to me, then away, like my reaction was an inconvenience. "You had him come here," I said quietly, not to Karis, not to Lemuel, to Zuri. "You knew." Zuri exhaled through her nose like I was slowing her down. "I knew they were serious," she said. "I didn't know they'd do it at her job." Her tone wasn't outrageous. It was annoying, like someone delivered a package to the wrong address. Then she added, "You'll figure it out. You always do." That was the moment a lot of older moments rearranged themselves in my head. The little comments, the jokes, the way she let her parents talk to me like I was an employee who needed coaching. I've been trying to love my way through it, to be patient, to be the steady one. But patience without boundaries is just slow surrender. Standing there with legal papers in my hand, I realized I wasn't being sued because of Trevian's debt. I was being sued because my marriage had trained them to believe I was available for sacrifice. It didn't start like this. When Zuri and I first met, she made life feel bright. We met at a rooftop cookout in D.C., music low, string lights hanging, paper plates bending under the weight of food. She laughed at my dry jokes like she'd known me for years. She asked real questions, not the surface kind. I told her I was a programmer, and she looked impressed. Actually impressed. "I like quiet smart," she said, and squeezed my hand like she meant it. Back then, she would brag about me in a way that felt protective. At brunch in Silver Spring, when someone asked what I did, she'd answer like she was proud to say it. "Omari builds systems," she'd say. "He fixes problems before people even realize there's a problem." She'd lean into me and whisper, "That's sexy." We'd laugh, and I'd feel chosen. We had little routines, late-night grocery runs, playlists in the car, her stealing the last bite of my food like it was tradition. Even her parents were warm in the beginning. The first time I went to their house in Prince George's County, Karis hugged me long, and called me baby like she was already claiming for me. Lemuel shook my hand hard and said, "A man with a real career," and laughed. I heard approval and ignored the implication. Zuri's brother Trevian sat on the couch, scrolling his phone, barely looked up, and said, "So you do the computer stuff?" Like it was a joke he couldn't finish. Zuri noticed my discomfort and squeezed my knee under the table. "Ignore him," she mouthed. "He's just Trevian." She made it sound harmless, like a quirk. The first time Trevian asked me for money was a month later. Not directly. He told Zuri a story, and she told me. "He's in a tight spot," she said, sitting on the edge of our bed, eyes wide and sincere. "Just a little help. He'll pay it back." I said no, calmly, and watched her face change. She didn't yell. Zuri rarely yells. She withdraws warmth like it's a switch. Her voice stayed sweet, but the meaning sharpened. "It's not like you can't afford it," she said. "Sometimes I forget you don't value family the way I do." That phrase, value family, became a weapon. It didn't matter that I valued family enough to build one responsibly. In her house, valuing family meant financing their chaos without questions. The disrespect built in small, believable steps. At first, it was her helping me speak. At a dinner in Bethesda with her friends, someone asked about my work, and I started explaining a project. Zuri smiled and cut in. "He does coding," she said, waving her hand like she was simplifying. "You know, like sitting at a computer all day. It's stable, but it's not like he's a decision maker." People laughed politely. My jaw tightened. Afterward, I told her that it bothered me. She blinked at me like she didn't understand the language I was speaking. "You're too sensitive," she said, unlocking her phone. "It's not that deep." When I asked for an apology, she looked up and smiled without warmth. "For what?" "Telling the truth." Then she hit me with another line I would learn to hate. "I'm not going to coddle you, Omari. You're a grown man." It sounded reasonable if you didn't know it was her way of refusing accountability. As her business grew, pop-ups, photo shoots, networking events, she started treating my stability like it was a resource she owned. Bills slid onto the kitchen counter without discussion. "Can you just cover it?" she'd say, light tone, already walking away. If I asked where the money went, she'd make her eyes big and wounded. "Why are you interrogating me?" If I reminded her we were married and this mattered, she'd shrug. "You're acting like a landlord." Then she'd go online and post about building together. She was charming in public in a way that made you doubt your own reality. At a friend's wedding in Baltimore, she held my arm and introduced me to people like I was the prize. "This is my husband," she said, beaming. "He's brilliant." Then in the car afterward, she turned on me because I corrected a tiny detail in her story. "You love making me look stupid," she said, face hard now that nobody could see. "You always have to be right." I said, "Come." I corrected the date. "That's it." She laughed. "See? There you go." Her parents sensed the shift and leaned into it. Lemuel started calling me to talk like men, which meant reminding me what I owed. He'd say things like, "The real husband steps up, and when you marry into a family, you carry the weight." The weight always looked like their bills. Karis would use emotion, sighing into the phone. "I'm tired, Omari," she'd say. "I raise my kids. I shouldn't still be cleaning up messes." Then she'd mention Trevian's mistake like it was a natural disaster. I asked what the debt was. It was vague at first. "Credit cards," Zuri said. "Some personal loan." Later, I learned it was a stack of bad decisions. Rent he didn't pay, a car he couldn't afford, a loan he took out under somebody else's promise. The kind of mess that grows when nobody forces you to face it. Every time I asked for numbers, dates, or paperwork, Zuri accused me of being cold. "Why do you need proof?" she'd say. "Do you think my family lies?" I didn't think her family lied the way scammers lie. I thought they lied the way entitled people lie, by believing their needs turn into your obligations. The first time I insisted on something in writing, it happened at their house after Sunday dinner. Karis had just served pie. Lemuel sat back like a judge. "We need you to cover Trevian's balance," he said. "We can't keep bailing him out." I said, "If I'm paying anything, I need a formal repayment plan." Trevian laughed out loud. "A contract," Trevian said, like the word offended him. "You're acting like a bank." Zuri's eyes flashed. "Omari," she said through her teeth, Don't embarrass me. I looked at her. I'm not embarrassing you, I said. I'm protecting us. She rolled her eyes. Protecting us from what? My own family. Then she did something she would do often. She turned my boundary into an insult. You act like you're better than us because you sit behind a screen all day. On the drive home, she didn't speak for 10 minutes. Then she said casually, if you don't help, they're going to see you differently. I kept my eyes on the road. They already do, I said. She exhaled like she was tired of me. You're lucky I married you, she said softly, like a secret. Another woman would replace you so fast. It was a threat wrapped in a whisper. It landed because she wanted it to. I didn't argue. I stored it. After that, the disrespect got more direct. During disagreements, she started using names. You're cheap, she'd say. You're selfish. Once, when I said her words hurt, she looked at me and shrugged. It's not my job to manage your emotions. Another time, after she publicly corrected me at a dinner party, Omari always thinks he's the smartest person in the room. I waited until we got home and told her it felt disrespectful. She smiled and said, it's called honesty. If you can't handle it, that's on you. I tried the usual things at first. I tried calm conversations. I tried therapy suggestions. I tried asking for simple agreement. No insults, no public humiliation, no letting her parents talk to me like I'm a wallet. Zuri would nod, apologize in a light, almost bored way, and then do it again the next week. Her apologies were performances, pretty words, no behavior change. When I pointed that out, she'd accuse me of keeping score. You're exhausting, she'd say. Sometimes I wish I married someone more easy. Trevian became a constant shadow. He'd show up at family events with new shoes, new gadgets, always broke. He'd slap my shoulder like we were friends and say, you good, big bro? And I'd say, I'm good. Then he'd lean in and lower his voice. Zuri said you can help me out, he'd say, like it was already decided. The first time I told him no directly, his face changed. You think you're better than me, he said. I said no. I think you should pay your own debt. That night, Zuri didn't defend my boundary. She punished it. She stopped speaking to me for 2 days, moving around the house like I was furniture. On the third day, she finally spoke, but not to connect, only to cut. My parents think you're disrespectful, she said, folding laundry with sharp movements. They think you're trying to control me. I said, I'm trying to control our finances. She laughed, short and bitter. Your finances, she corrected. You act like I'm your dependent. Then she added, if you keep pushing, I'll leave. I started noticing the pattern. When Zuri wanted something, she used sweetness. When she didn't get it, she used pressure. If pressure didn't work, she used her parents. And if that didn't work, she used the threat of abandonment. I realized I was living with someone who believed love meant leverage. So I stopped reacting the way she expected. I didn't plead. I didn't raise my voice. I started listening for the details that didn't match. I started watching what she did when she thought I wasn't watching. The next escalation came through small favors. Zuri asked me to co-sign something for her business, just a vendor account, just a phone line, just something she swore wasn't risky. I said I'd review it. She sighed dramatically. You don't trust me, she said. If you loved me, you wouldn't need to read everything. I kept my tone even. If you're asking for my signature, I'm reading everything. She stared at me like I was committing betrayal. You're not supportive, she said. You're a programmer. You think everything is numbers. Maybe I do. Numbers don't lie the way people do. A week later, I got a notification from my bank, an inquiry I didn't recognize. When I asked Zuri about it, she looked me in the eyes and said, no idea. Her face was smooth, perfect. Then she dismissed me with a kiss on the cheek. Stop stressing yourself, she said. You're always looking for a problem. That night, she fell asleep easily. I lay awake and replayed her tone. It wasn't innocent. It was practiced. I pulled my credit reports quietly. Not in the kitchen. Not with drama. Alone, with my laptop, late at night. And there it was, a recent credit attempt tied to an account name that looked like Zuri's business. My personal information linked beside it. My chest didn't explode. My heart didn't race. I just felt cold clarity. I took screenshots, saved PDFs, and then I did what I always do when something might become a dispute. I created a folder and started documenting everything. I haven't confronted her yet. Confrontation was what she was good at, turning emotion into fog. Instead, I changed my posture. I separated accounts where I could. I updated my passwords. I turned on two-factor authentication everywhere. I froze my credit. I ordered extra reports. I set alerts. Quiet actions. No speeches. Zuri noticed my distance and tried to soften. She cooked my favorite meal. She wore the smile that got her forgiven. "You've been weird," she said sweetly. "Are you okay?" I said, "I'm fine." That answer bothered her. Her parents came next, right on schedule. Karis called one afternoon and asked if I could meet them for coffee in Hyattsville. The request sounded reasonable, but I could hear the agenda behind it. I went because I wanted information. Karis sat across from me, hands clasped. Lemuel arrived and didn't even order anything. He leaned forward and said, "We need to settle Trevian's debt. He's drowning." I asked, "What's the exact amount?" Lemuel's eyes narrowed. Karis tried to smile. "Why does that matter?" she asked. "Because if you're asking for money, details matter," I said. Lemuel's voice turned sharp. "Don't talk to us like we're strangers," he said. "We're family." I nodded once. "Then you should be comfortable being transparent," I said. That's when Karis sighed and said, "Zuri told us you've been acting controlling." The word controlling hung there like a verdict. I looked at them and realized Zuri had been preparing them, building a story where my boundaries were abuse and their demands were love. A week later, Zuri tried to pressure me with public humiliation. We were at a small gathering in Arlington, friends, couples, laughter. Someone asked about finances in a light way, like adults do. Zuri smiled and said, "Omari is so tight with money. He acts like the world will end if he spends." Then she laughed and added, "That's why my business will always be bigger than his job." People laughed awkwardly. I felt the heat rise, but I stayed still. I took a sip of water. I said nothing. Zuri watched me, waiting for my reaction, hungry for it. On the drive home, she exploded anyway because I didn't give her the argument she wanted. "Say something," she snapped. "You sat there like I embarrassed you." I kept my eyes forward. "You did," I said calmly. She scoffed. "You're so dramatic. You're too sensitive." Then, like she always did when she felt her control slipping, she went for the throat. "Sometimes I regret marrying you," she said. "I could have done better. I still can." She said it like a fact. I nodded once. "Okay," I said. That word, "okay," shook her more than any shouting would have. 2 days later, the lawsuit hit my desk at work. That's not a coincidence. That's coordination. And when I connected that to the credit inquiries, the fog cleared completely. They weren't just demanding money. They were trying to trap me into being responsible, legally, financially, while Zuri stayed clean. That's why she stayed quiet. Silence was her strategy. If she didn't defend me, she didn't have to contradict her parents. If she didn't contradict them, she could still say she never got involved. In her mind, the court could do the forcing she couldn't. I didn't panic. I called an attorney in Alexandria on my lunch break. I brought printed reports, screenshots, and the complaint. I didn't get emotional. I went in organized. The attorney, a black woman with a calm voice and sharp eyes, scanned the papers and asked, "When did your wife find out about this?" I said, "Before I did." She nodded slowly. "And the alleged agreement?" she asked. "I never signed anything," I said. "Then we treat this like what it is," she said. "An attempt to make you a guarantor without your consent." We filed a formal response denying the claims. Then we requested discovery. That's where the story changes, because people who operate on pressure rarely keep their paperwork clean. When the court process begins, charm doesn't matter. Feelings don't matter. What matters is documentation, timelines, and signatures. The Ashfords had narrative. We asked for evidence. They submitted a written agreement that looked like a screenshot of a note. No signature, no verification, a date that didn't match anything. My attorney smiled without humor. "They're sloppy," she said. "Good." The next step was subpoenas. Text logs, bank records, email trails, vendor documents connected to the debt. That's when the ground started shifting under Zuri's feet. Because the more the court required, the more her private choices became visible. Her parents thought they were dragging me into court to scare me into paying. They didn't expect the court to drag their entire scheme into the light, slowly, legally, in a way you can't charm your way out of. At home, Zuri played sweet again. "We can get through this," she said, touching my arm like we were on the same side. "My parents are just stressed. Trevian is struggling." I looked at her and asked one question. "Why didn't you tell them to stop?" Her face tightened. "Because you always make them feel judged," she snapped. Then she caught herself and softened. "I just didn't want conflict," she said. The lie was gentle. I didn't argue. I went back to my laptop. She watched me like she was looking for her old control. Discovery responses came back in pieces, like puzzle parts that tell the truth when you line them up. Trevian's debt wasn't just personal. It was tangled with transfers that benefited Zuri's business, vendor deposits, ad spend, and a few temporary payments that moved through family accounts. My attorney flagged it. "This isn't clean," she said. Then she showed me something that made my stomach go cold. Messages between Zuri and Karis. Zuri had texted, "Don't worry. Omari won't say no if you put pressure on him. He hates looking like the bad guy." I read that line 3 times. Not because I didn't understand it, because I finally understood everything. Zuri wasn't trapped by her parents. She was collaborating with them. She had been using their voices to do what she couldn't do alone. Break me down, make me doubt my boundaries, and then force me to fund the family's chaos. The lawsuit wasn't a betrayal that happened to our marriage. It was the natural result of how she'd been treating me for years, as a resource, not a partner. When I confronted her, I didn't throw the phone. I didn't yell. I sat at the kitchen table in our townhouse, placed printed pages in front of her, and said, "Explain this." Zuri scanned the text, and for the first time, her public charm didn't know what to do. Her lips parted slightly. Her eyes darted. Then she tried the oldest move. "You're invading my privacy," she said, outraged, shifting blame. I didn't blink. "Court subpoena," I said. "Not me." The color drained from her face. She tried tears next, quick and pretty. "I was under pressure," she whispered. "My parents," I held up my hand, calm. "Don't," I said. "You wrote this." Her tears stopped like they'd hit a wall. Then her voice turned sharp. "So what? You're going to ruin me," she snapped. There was again. Not remorse. Fear of consequences. I stood up. "I'm going to protect myself," I said. "Whatever happens after that is a result of choices you already made." The fallout wasn't a movie moment. It was paperwork. There were deadlines. It was mail arriving every day like a drumbeat. My attorney filed a motion to dismiss their claims and requested sanctions for frivolous litigation. We filed a counterclaim tied to the misuse of my information and the reputational harm of serving me at my workplace. We also documented the credit attempts. A fraud review began quietly. Not dramatic, but real. The kind of process that makes banks and creditors stop smiling and start asking questions with checkboxes. Zuri's business felt it first. Vendor accounts that used to approve her instantly started requiring deposits. A shipping supplier paused her orders pending verification. A payment processor flagged her for inconsistent identity data. She didn't tell her friends why. She blamed haters and systems, but her voice wasn't confident anymore. At night, I'd hear her pacing. She'd sit on the edge of the bed scrolling, refreshing, reading emails, whispering no, 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 like denial could change an audit. Karis and Lemuel felt it next. Their lawsuit stopped feeling like power and started feeling like exposure. My attorney's discovery requests kept coming. Dates, statements, authorizations. Suddenly, their family matter had to be answered under penalty. Lemuel called me angry at first. "You're disrespecting us," he shouted. I kept my tone even. "You sue me in my workplace," I said. "This is the process you chose." Then he tried a different voice, calm, fatherly. "Let's settle," he said. "We can handle it privately." I said no. Trevian, the smug one, started unraveling in the background. He posted vague quotes about betrayal and snakes in your circle, but he couldn't post his way out of court deadlines. When he finally called me, his voice wasn't playful. "Bro, just help me," he said. "You got it." I said, "You're not entitled to my money." He cursed under his breath and said, "Zuri said you'd fold." I paused. "She miscalculated," I said. Then I hung up. Zuri's charm began failing publicly, in small cracks. At an event in D.C., a woman I recognized from her business circle gave her a tight smile and said, "Girl, I heard you're dealing with something legal." Zuri laughed too loud. "People are messy," she said. "You know how rumors go." But the rumor wasn't a rumor. It was a chain reaction. When financial institutions get nervous, they become quiet. When friends get nervous, they become distant. Zuri kept smiling, but her eyes started looking hunted. At home, she tried to rewrite history with therapy language she didn't live by. "You're stonewalling me," she said one night, voice trembling. "You're punishing me." I answered calmly. "I'm not punishing you," I said. "I'm disengaging from manipulation." She scoffed. "You think you're so logical," she snapped. "You're not a good husband." I looked at her. "A good husband doesn't get sued by his in-laws for a debt he didn't create," I said. My voice didn't rise. The truth did the damage. The court hearing arrived like winter, inevitable, slow, and cold. We didn't need theatrics. The judge didn't care about vibes. The judge cared about evidence. The Ashford's agreement didn't hold up. Their claims contradicted their own records. The more questions the judge asked, the more their story collapsed into what it really was, a pressure campaign dressed up as legal obligation. The judge dismissed major parts of their case and warned them about sanctions. Lemuel's face tightened. Karis's mouth trembled. Zuri stared straight ahead, refusing to look at me. And the next layer hit, quietly, devastatingly. The fraud review didn't end with a warning. It triggered additional verification requests across connected accounts. Banks don't announce consequences with speeches. They close doors and leave you staring at unable to process messages. Zuri's business accounts froze, pending documentation. A planned partnership paused indefinitely. A small investor she'd been courting stopped responding. Her landlord asked for updated proof of income for a lease renewal. She couldn't provide what she used to brag about. Her empire turned into emails with subject lines like "action required." Her parents' social world changed too, not with headlines, but with sideways looks. Church friends stopped asking Zuri about her business. Family gatherings went quiet when she walked in. People don't like messy things that might splash on them. Karis called me crying one afternoon, voice cracked. "We didn't mean for it to go this far," she said. I kept my voice steady. "You meant for it to go far enough to force me," I said. Silence. Then she whispered, "Zuri is falling apart." I said, "She built this." Zuri tried one last time to regain control. She offered the apology she'd withheld for years, but it came out like a negotiation. "I'm sorry," she said, eyes glossy, hands clasped. "I should have defended you. I should have protected our marriage." I watched her carefully. "Why now?" I asked. Her voice shook. "Because I see I could lose everything," she admitted. That honesty was the only honest thing she'd said in months. I nodded slowly. "You didn't apologize when it was about my dignity," I said. "You're apologizing because your consequences arrived." I moved out into a small, clean apartment in Hyattsville with light that felt honest. I kept my routines: gym, therapy, work, cooking. I filed for divorce with an attorney who didn't confuse kindness with weakness. The settlement process was cold and precise. Assets separated, accounts documented, obligations defined. Zuri's business, under scrutiny and pressure, couldn't support the lifestyle she used to weaponize over me. She moved back into her parents' house for a while, the same house where they taught her entitlement and then blamed her for inheriting it. Months later, I saw her once, by accident, at a grocery store in Maryland. She looked smaller, not physically, but in posture, like her confidence had been repossessed. She opened her mouth like she wanted to speak. I nodded once, polite, and kept walking. I didn't need revenge. I needed peace. She had tried to turn my steadiness into a leash. Instead, it became my exit. And the last thing I felt, leaving her behind in that aisle, wasn't anger. It was a quiet closure. I stopped funding disrespect, and everything that depended on it collapsed. Disrespect doesn't always come as yelling. It can come as silence, jokes, and letting other people mistreat you while your partner watches. If someone repeatedly dismisses your feelings as too sensitive, refuses to apologize, and uses family pressure or threats to control you, that isn't love, it's manipulation. If you made it this far, you already know Peace is a decision. Type, I choose peace in the comments if you're done funding disrespect. Subscribe plus turn notifications on, because the next story is even colder and you won't want to miss the moment the mask slips. The lesson is simple. Don't argue with patterns. Document them, set boundaries, and protect your name. A calm, observant person doesn't need revenge. They need clarity. And when you stop paying the emotional and financial tax of being tolerated instead of respected, the people who benefited from your patience will finally face the weight of their own choices.